Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this morning for our event titled BI Unclouded, Strategies for Cloud Migration Journeys. My name is Dr. Kyle Holmes and I'm a director at KeyData, and it is my pleasure to be hosting this session today with what is quite an extraordinary panel of industry experts from companies that we at KeyData are very proud to call our partners. In today's session, which will be the first in a series aimed at talking through current challenges and opportunities in our industry, we'll explore some of the nuances around cloud migrations that can slow, impact, or even stop businesses from leveraging cloud infrastructure and from taking those important first, second, or sometimes fifth or sixth steps on that cloud journey. And we'll also discuss with our panel some of the strategies to mitigate these and have them share their perspectives on how to realize the full potential of cloud data platforms. We're all looking for opportunities to grow and develop AI capabilities within our business. And with the rapid rise of things like Gen AI, for example, further piquing and our interest and desire, it's important that we remember that AI models need solid data models and infrastructure to support them. And hands down, solutions that leverage cloud technologies are the best towards developing those capabilities and accelerating our data transformations within our businesses. And what we found at KeyData was that whether it's moving applications or data completely or in part to cloud, there are regularly a suite of similar sort of blockers stopping organizations from taking those steps in the cloud. And it was to that end that my colleague and commercial director here at KeyData, Henny Amir, had the great idea to get together a selection of key players in the industry to discuss this. And to that end, I would like to introduce our panel of speakers for today. From the world's #1 CRM platform, we have Adrian Stain, Director, Partner Sales at Salesforce Tableau. Good morning, Adrian.
Morning, Kyle. Good to be here with everyone.
Brilliant. From Coalesce, an amazing cloud-born platform built for taking data transformation at scale to the next level, we have Andrew Montgomery, Partner Account Manager. Good morning, Monty.
Hey, good morning, Kyle. Yeah, likewise with Adrian. Great to be here.
Fantastic. And from Snowflake, hands down, an amazing platform that among its many advantages can help businesses eliminate data silos and really simplify our architecture. We have Sagar Kulkarni, Partner Sales Engineer at Snowflake. Good morning, Sagar.
Good morning, Kyle. Thanks for inviting me in this great podcast. Thank you.
Fantastic. Welcome, and thank you again, gentlemen, for participating in today's session. So for today, our agenda is going to be focused around three key broad topics. So firstly, getting buy-in for cloud technology and cloud transformation projects within our businesses. Secondly, we'll dive into questions around performance, scalability, and security of cloud infrastructure. And finally, we'll get into the team skills and the cultural aspects around data. And at the end of our session, if we have time remaining, we'll certainly welcome some Q&A, and you can place your questions into the chat section that is available. So I guess to get us underway, Adrian, if I think I'm a CIO or a senior manager with a vision in my business to transform it with data, when it comes to developing that strategy for the business, what are some of the key ways to engage with the business that are maybe hesitant to consider cloud tech or don't understand the why, if you know what I mean, Adrian?
Kyle, that's a great question to kick us off, especially in a world that dynamically changes and shifts on a continuous basis. It often creates real fear of making the right choices. The stakes could generally be quite high. We all know that cloud technology has been around for some time, largely driven through infrastructure takeout costs and savings, not to mention the huge impact that COVID had on businesses and remote workers. But since November 22, we've really witnessed the incredible rise of integrated AI and GPT capabilities across cloud platforms, which now offers unprecedented strategic value. So for executives who might be hesitant or not fully grasp the significance of this shift, it's essential that we highlight the direct impact of such strategic business objectives. For example, within the data analytics domain where I am, cloud-enabled AI doesn't just automate processes like data collection and scripting. With the power of GPT, we now have the ability to provide intuitive data-driven decisions aligned to specific business outcomes. And this is a shift beyond the traditional dashboards, in a world where executives are able to access impactful insights directly aligned to their most strategic initiatives. So the executive team is able to steer the ship more accurately, be more profitable, and mitigate risk far more efficiently. So engaging with those skeptical executives that you mentioned, that the conversation has to extend beyond product and the typical single-dimensional view of TCO and ROI. Yes, those are important, but there are also other metrics such as operational resilience, scalability, time to market, and the rate of innovation. And these all play critical roles in enabling businesses to rapidly adapt to those changing market conditions. So as an intro for us today, I believe cloud technologies have certainly matured, and now with the rise of AI, brings a far greater conversation to C-level executives about strategic transformation and agility. And Kyle, this offers unprecedented opportunities for businesses to transform.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Adrian. Completely agree. And I guess, Sagar, when it comes to actually migrating our data assets to cloud infrastructure, for example, what type of considerations should businesses have in deciding, either to lift or shift or to look to rebuild something?
Yep. So once you have decided and once you get the buy-in from the executive sponsors and you've decided that you're going to move your platform from on-premise to cloud, there are three options that I see that you can think of. One is a lift and shift, where you just take your application and your code and put it on cloud as is. So you're not changing anything in your application, you're not redesigning it. The second is lift and adjust. So you're taking the code, but adjusting some of those code design principles to account the good things and the good design principles that cloud has. Okay, like elasticity is one of them. Think of how you're going to load data into cloud. Like if you're looking at the platform like Snowflake, you want to adjust the load instead of instead of loading a big file, you want to split it into smaller files, which is more efficient on cloud and loading to Snowflake. So those are the adjustments that you make to the cloud. So that's the second option. And the third one is really a complete redesign, where you say, hey, I want to look at this application from fresh set of eyes. I want to think about all the Snowflake and cloud architecture and the good things that will help me get a new design on the cloud. So these are the three options. And obviously, when you go from left to right, left being lift and shift and right being redesign, it's less efforts with lift and shift, and it's considerable more efforts in redesign. So I would always tell my customers is don't try to redesign everything, because that can be a very long period. You might end up into complexities, challenges, which might take your cloud migration journey onto a very long path. So I would like my customers to be in the middle ground, which is really lift and adjust. So that's my aim to start with. Now, there might be some legacy applications that you're never going to touch. You're not going to change them. It's just there for your organization. It's running for last 10 years. It's going to run for the next 20 years, and you don't want to redesign those. Maybe you don't even want to adjust anything. So for those, you can just take those applications, put it on the cloud, and let them run as it is. Anything new which is coming after that, you start fresh on the cloud. Okay, so that might be one approach that you can help mitigate the longevity of the journey, right? And that's what the issue is. Most of the journeys fail because they either take too long to migrate on the cloud, because they're thinking of that big bang approach where you want to go and redesign everything. But let's not do that. Let's start with the minimal path to success, which is either lift and adjust or lift and shift for legacy applications, which you're not touching. So that would be my recommendation for anyone who is going on the migration path.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sagar. Which actually provides a nice segue to the next question, actually, for you, Andrew. And I guess from your experience, what does a typical data migration journey look like? And what are some of those sort of typical value measures you look for in a move, say, of a data asset to cloud to show the business the progress?
Yeah, good question. Typical is such a funny word, because I think everyone's going to have a real unique experience as they start to do their cloud migrations. But I can tell you the common themes I've seen from my experience, that before I even get into the idea of even just metrics, in general, I'd say the key thing, and there's going to be a bit of overlay with what Adrian said before, it's strategy, strategy, and more strategy. It's a case of if you fail to plan, you plan to fail in a sense, basically. And because what it comes down to is there's really like a recipe for data migration or data transformational projects, effectively. In fact, and there's tons of different ways and common themes that come across them. But from my experience, there's probably about 5 key pillars. It's a case of, and we've already spoken about this, and I think it's going to become a theme through this conversation, executive leadership and buy-in, basically. You have to have this. If you don't have the top-down support, then the next 4 points I'm going to talk through are going to be almost impossible to implement. And that comes down to a data strategy in the first place. If you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it, then there's nothing to align the entire project on it in the first place too. And that could be things like, I want to drive, operational resilience. I want to increase customer loyalty. I want to do those things. If you don't have that strategy defined in the first place, then it's not going to underpin their initiatives or hook the initiatives together as to what your teams are doing when they're delivering a data platform and its requirements as well too. And then another one is establish a platform as well. Like establish a platform that's obviously software as a service, platform as a service. But the point being here is establish a platform that's so simple to run and use that you can start at the use case in that case too. You don't have to worry about administrating and maintaining things because we're getting far away from that world. And the more time we spend administration maintaining an environment, the less time we're worried about actually solving business issues. And the next thing I'd say is training and education is huge and fundamental. When you're building when you're doing one of these big data initiatives, then you're taking people on a journey in a sense too. So which means you're bringing in a new platform, new tools, new ways of working, new processes. And that means people have to be brought on the journey and upskilled as well too. If you're a larger organization, that means every different business unit is going to be doing something slightly differently, using a different stack of tools. And you need to find a way to build an operational framework to kind of bring that all together or have a unique federated model too. Last one, I guess is where I think is important too. It's the critical piece, and it's sometimes we miss it. It's more of a socio-technical solution. It's driving culture, basically. If you do not drive culture, you won't change. You won't have everlasting change. You will have moved the needle by including a strategy, establishing a platform and technology, building training frameworks, but the culture keeps the fire burning, and that's the stuff that keeps the change moving as well too. So that's why I'd say the 5 major themes or focuses I've seen across major data migrations and even smaller ones too. But if you're getting down to metrics and you're really boiling it down to something really basic, and I'd say all those 5 pillars would have their own metrics, what it would come down to throughout a project lifecycle would be something like it's downtime minimization, it's data integrity, performance, and cost efficiency. And that's what it comes down to. So are we actually moving, as we cut across our pipelines from one platform to another, are we maintaining them and making sure they're staying up so we have no downtime and maintaining SLAs and data integrity from a point of view? And it depends when you think of Sagar's concept of the lift or shift or doing like a ratified model where we analyze everything and then move it across first, then data integrity is key on both of those points too. And then performance and cost efficiency. People aren't moving to new platforms, new technologies because they want a slower, more costly environment, right? This has always been what we're doing whenever we move somewhere. It's always getting faster and it's always getting cheaper for the right reasons too. So that's where I would kind of leave those things, basically.
Great insights, Andrew. And absolutely, I think the performance scalability part will actually get to in a sec. But I think you've touched on, again, something we'll touch on a bit later, a bit more around the people and culture thing. And I just want to quickly throw to Sagar if you had a comment just on that, mate.
Yeah, I think I really resonate with what Monty was saying, and culture is a key. Technology is secondary. Technology is good, but it's not going to really help if you're not going to change your culture, and which will be people and process. A lot of time I've seen the challenges are with people and process and not with technology. So if you get those 2 right, the technology will just follow and you'll get a really great outcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sagar. So just changing tack slightly, I'm keen now probably just to talk about some of the stuff that Andrew touched on there around performance and scalability side of things. And these are often very attractive benefits of using cloud. But from your perspective, Sagar, what are some of the critical things to watch for or focus on from that performance scalability perspective to make sure we're getting the best value when we're migrating our assets and workloads to cloud?
It's an interesting question, and quite often you see customers going on the journey of cloud who obviously get good performance. Like Monty said, you're going to go to a new shiny tool, whether it's on cloud or whether it's on premise, to have a better performance and reduce the cost, right? That's the end goal. But when you go on cloud, quite often customers feel that the costs are exponential, because when you go on cloud, you get a power of resources and scalability. You get literally unlimited resources on the cloud, which are there at a click of a button, and you can scale your resources, whether it's vertically up or horizontally out, and you can end up with a big bill. So what I recommend to customers and to my partners is have a good governance guardrails, which will ensure that you are not really putting resources which are not required. So I'll give you an example. So let's say if you have got an SLA where you want to run a data integration batch which requires to be run in 8 hours, you can put a bigger server and run it in, let's say, half an hour. Do you really need that? And that is where you have to think about how you're going to allocate resources and make sure you're not allocating more resources than what is required from your SLAs. When it comes to performance, it's also good to see the elasticity of cloud. And I would encourage customers to really split their workload into micro workloads, because you can have resources allocated to different workloads and different micro workloads, so that they are isolated from a performance perspective, from a workload perspective, and you can scale up and down or scale out individual resources. So that's something I would really encourage customers to do, that rather than having one cluster or one big cluster for everything, right? So don't do that. Try to micro partition your workloads and have the resources allocated to that. So that would be my two things. And then obviously your governance and scalability. We have, apart from that, whatever cloud platform you go to, whether it's Snowflake or any other platform, there are tons of features which are available on this platform. So make use of those. So for example, for Snowflake, I would make use of zero copy cloning. I don't want multiple, data sets there. I want to reduce the data silos. So I will use those. I will use time travel in Snowflake to go back in time. I will use auto clustering. The automation that comes with the cloud is so great when you use it correctly, which will improve time to value and reduce your costs. So those are some of the things. And then a partner, a good SI partner like KeyData will definitely help you with that journey, giving you the design principles that are required to make an efficient platform on the cloud.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sagar. Indeed, we certainly something we'd focus very heavily on. It's actually it's a nice segue to the next question to Andrew, actually. And where we've got, for example, some of those legacy systems that maybe don't necessarily have any, owners, data owners in the business, or things are a bit complex. What type of changes and discussions do you think we should be having in our, in our businesses to prepare for migration and handling, the business logic and the transformations that are existing?
Yeah, damn good question. And it does get me more granular following on the question you gave me before too. So look, two key ones that I think of, and they have a relationship, but then they seem distinctly different at first, but they are related. It's change and organizational change. So depending if you were, let's say, depending on where you're in your data journey, and maybe you're on premise, you've had no cloud experience, maybe you've moved to the cloud, and this is before, and now you're doing your cloud version too. It doesn't really matter. It goes back to the introducing new tools and a new way of working. So you need to, well, you don't always have to, depending on the size of your business, but in most cases, I'd argue, you still have to establish and build a way of working with data and an operational framework for data too. And that can be a few things. It can be highly prescriptive and in terms of how we're used and heavily governed, or it could be freedom within a framework. If you pass out some of those responsibilities and ownership out to business units and decentralize it, and people can decide on how to work on data, but there's certain rules and metrics and governance set up to support people too. But it's going to require change and change management to implement, and a lot of understanding to do this as well. And then the last one, which I think is probably more critical to your question as well, it's a business definition ownership. I mean, this always seems like a challenging one, because it's like everyone knows they need to do it. Every organization is using data, that they're making critical decisions constantly, but they don't always understand the data as intimately as they need to. So this goes down to finding the right data governance management framework, tools, processes, the whole lot as well too. And that's the thing. And in fairness to businesses, they're busy doing business, so they can't get there. So to be honest, and it goes a few different ways too, because then I start to think of a few things, right? If you don't, it all comes back to strategy. Because if you don't have a data strategy that includes data literacy or even data knowledge, because data literacy can be a bit extreme for some people, being literate in something means you're an absolute expert, where just having knowledge can sometimes be powerful enough too, then you won't have a strong migration in the first place too. But without understanding what you're moving in the first place, and for anyone, and this goes back to Adrian was talking about this too, and everyone's talking about Gen AI as well. For anyone doing Gen AI and LLMs and trying to work in that world, or an AI in general, you're not going to get the valid responses or outputs without clearly and understandable information and conformed information. So I'm stealing this from Frank Slootman, who the ex-CEO of Snowflake, but he's got a good quote, which is like, there's no AI strategy without a data strategy. And I couldn't agree more with that, basically. And that starts with business definitions at the end of the day and ownership in the first place. And that's another change management conversation, because then that comes down to the ownership of data and the operational framework for working with said data.
Yeah, fantastic, Andrew. And that book by Frank is definitely a good read. Recommend tracking that down if you haven't already. And I think one thing we would be remiss not to touch on is some of the security side of things here. Certainly something that's top of mind for a lot of businesses. And when I'm building that vision for AI, Adrian, what do you think are the key components that I should be considering to ensure that my business is comfortable with security management on my platforms?
Well, Kyle, not surprising when we speak to our customers, the one clear concern emerging across both the IT and the business spectrums is the heightened awareness and urgency around security. And this is particularly relevant in today's digital ecosystem, where data not only impacts the strategic decisions that are made, but also constitute a significant asset that requires that stringent protection. So when we discuss various solutions or outcomes with our customers, there are three components or elements that we feel must be at the forefront to ensure effective strategy and security and management of these platforms. The first one is an integrated security architecture. It's essential to have a robust security framework that is integrated into the data platform from the ground up. And this means encryption at rest and in transit, rigorous access control, the ability to audit all interactions with the data. That's the first step, and this transcends multiple technologies and platforms to really integrate well into one another. The second one is compliance and regulations. As a global organization, our customers operate within various geopolitical landscapes, requiring them to adhere to local and international regulations. So, if we look at government or industry regulatory requirements such as APRA or ASIC, these are just examples where compliance must be baked into the solution and not bolted on as an afterthought. And this is often a big challenge that we find with customers, that they build the whole solution, they build their data cloud, for example, and then they realize, oh, we have to bolt on an APRA regulation into this, and that's too late and often quite costly to undertake. And the third one is transparent and manageable AI, and this is something that has come up more to the forefront in the last 12 to 18 months. And to really foster trust, it is important for whichever AI system that is used to be transparent in their workings and understandable to non-experts. This means that having clear documentation on how the models generate their outputs, providing tools for monitoring and managing the AI operations. There's the notion of an AI black box architecture, causes real trust issues, potential regulatory compliance issues, unknown biases, and ethical concerns. And those are all real and true concerns that customers face when they are trying to move into the domain of AI and getting the most out of an AI system. So to wrap up, from my perspective, security isn't just a feature. It really is an integrated foundation comprising of all these multiple layers by which all resilient and trustworthy cloud platforms should be judged at.
Yeah, great comment, Adrian. Could not agree more around that. Fantastic. So just Moving perhaps to our last agenda item around teams and skills, and I know we've had a bit of a theme throughout around this, but I just to throw a question to both Sagar and Andrew, perhaps starting with you first, Sagar. But what does good look like around teams, team skills, and expertise? When I'm transitioning to cloud, I'm interested in your thoughts around how to address those gaps and build my team capabilities. So yeah, start with yourself, Sagar, and then Andrew.
Yeah, so for me, if I want to look at what is a good team looks like when it comes to cloud, I'm looking at a variety of different expertise. So you've got obviously looking at a platform that needs to be built or migrated, the current platform, so skills to support that platform, but also the future where we are talking about generative AI, LLMs, and AI in general. So a lot of those skills on Python, let's say, where you can use those skills to build those models. So those are the two different skill sets. So we have got some skill sets which are already, I don't want to say legacy, but already in use in the organizations, while the skills which are there for the future. So I need those two different skill sets. The third one I would look at is from a tooling perspective, do I have a tool which can automate most of the tasks that the users or developers are already doing? So, and because Coalesce is here, I'll give you an example of, hey, I'm having a data engineers who are writing their code right now in, let's say, scripts. Can I automate that through a tool like Coalesce? And that can be a great way of, expertising, a great way of expediting your skill sets and even the migration efforts to the cloud. So that would be, in general, what I would look at. Having a good team. So it will be a technology and the people combined working really well together.
Yeah, brilliant. Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I'll echo that last point, Will, and thank you, Saga. What I would put in there is, for me, it's always still comes down to people, process, and the implementation side of things too. So it's strong leadership. If we're thinking about the skills right now, strong leadership, relevant industry, business acumen. The project and change management skills are absolutely critical here as you're moving and shifting a huge bunch of technology and processes across as well too. But also having architects and engineers with the specific cloud and data platform experience are critical too. And then even the sub skills and soft skills, that's the ability to take the business on the journey. So for a consulting company, it's working hand in hand with the customer. For the customer, it's working with the for the cloud migration project owner and taking their stakeholders on the journey as well internally, because there's different hierarchies and levels of people taking each other on this journey. And then ultimately, to bridge the gap, it's build or hire the right skills. Find a partner that has the experience and the skills to do this, to rapidly accelerate as well, or build them internally, perhaps, or you do both. And then lower the barrier for entry for doing this stuff too, which is utilizing the software as a service, platform as a service, tools that, like Sagar mentioned too, that automate a lot of the redundant processes and the boring stuff that you don't want to be doing, so you can focus on getting to the use cases straight away too. And that's really, really critical. And then, yeah, look, strong technical skills are essential, but more importantly, it's the ability to talk to the business and understand the specific needs is critical as well. So like a lot of the business analysis stuff, because ultimately, we've said this a few times, you can implement anything. We've done it for the past 20 years. There's all sorts of technologies, but really understanding what people want and what their outcomes are and what their strategies are absolutely critical. So yeah, it comes back to leadership, knowledge, project and change management, and so on from there.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm just conscious of time. The last question I have for you, Adrian, before we open up for a bit of Q&A, is when it comes to that data and data culture and getting data-driven decision-making democratized in my business, what would you say are the 3 top things that I should focus on, when I'm moving to cloud?
Yeah, Kyle. So looking at the democratization of data-driven decision-making businesses, especially during this transition to cloud platforms, there really are 3 areas that should be prioritized to ensure an effective implementation and including a widespread adoption after that. So firstly, for me, the important bit is data accessibility. And central to this is ensuring that the data is accessible to those who need it, when they need it, in a format that is understandable and actionable. And cloud platforms are great in providing broad access to data across geographic and even within a business across departments or business unit boundaries, etc. And this allows businesses to really focus on implementing cloud solutions that offer that robust data integration capabilities, ensuring that all of the data sources are unified and accessible, in a single component. If the end users don't have access to the data that they need to see, that the company expects them to make decisions on, it essentially would lead to a failure. The second point that I have is data literacy, and this is often overlooked. And it's often also an unknown within many organizations. While we might assume that people working in an office have a level of data literacy, we can only affect a data culture by providing access to all of those who don't. Typically factory and construction workers or healthcare providers. We get to cultivate a genuine data culture that empowers every employee with actionable insights. And that will lead to an improvement of efficiency, safety, and quality. So it's an everybody needs to be part of this literacy journey. And thirdly, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, is governance and security. And I'm sure we can all agree that it's important to make data accessible, but it's equally important to ensure that it's done securely, with proper governance models. This means that there are clear policies on who can access the different data types, how data is used, and ensuring that compliance is put in place. So cloud platforms can provide sophisticated security and compliance tools that really simplifies the management of these components. And these are really integral to maintaining that secure and compliant environment. That leads to building trust in the data systems, as well as the insights that are derived from them. We find more and more C-level executives, when they look at information that is presented to them, they don't just take it on face value. They ask the questions: where does the data come from? What parameters did we provide to ensure that the data is accurate? What is the possibility that bias might occur somewhere within that? So we really need to build those mechanisms within our data platforms to ensure that we cover all of that from a regulatory, but also from a governance perspective. So in a nutshell, these three areas, I believe, will significantly aid businesses in building and cultivating that strong data culture, ultimately, supporting that democratized culture that drives innovation and efficiencies across the whole business.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. And I think it's been a fantastic discussion this morning, gentlemen. Very much appreciate your perspectives and insights. And open up to the attendees. If you have any questions for the panel, please pop them in the chat, and we'll certainly get the questions to the panel. But we'll just give a minute for that to happen. And whilst we're waiting, gents, I might just do a quick whip around and ask your quick opinions. So what do you believe is the most challenging component, if you had to choose one, in a migration process? Is it the migrate? Is it the people, the process, or the data? Which is the most challenging? Andrew?
Yeah, I'm going to go with people. And you might have picked that theme up as I've gone through this anyway. I think it's all about the people, everything. When you're building a team to do anything, you've got to pick the right people to do the job in the first place. And let's say even leaning on that cultural angle as well too, like you need people who can be champions and leaders in their own rights as well too. So finding people, so you're trying to build a culture of data, for example, you find people who are passionate about it, then empower them to run sessions, like run webinars internally, talk about problems that people are solving, because people are doing really, really cool things in their organizations. They're just generally not talking about it. They're doing it with all the cool tools like Tableau, these amazing visualizations. They're solving problems with Snowflake and providing these incredible feeds, and then even using Coalesce, and then a whole bunch of data engineers talking about some cool modeling they're doing. This starts happening. Get people talking about it, and they want to do more of it. Like, at the end of the day, these are jobs, but some people make these jobs their lifestyles, realistically. So it's a good chance to get these people out there. So culture.
100%. Thank you, Andrew. Adrian?
Yeah, to add to that, Kyle, we get customers, especially over the last 6 months or so, that are super excited about AI, and they really want to jump into AI, boots and all. We take the position just to take a pause and say to our customers, if you want good AI, you need good data. If you want good data, you need good governance, you need good management, you need good security, and you need that foundation of a good data culture. All of those elements are required for you to get the most out of AI. It's not something that you can just jump in straight away.
100%. Couldn't agree more, Adrian. And final comment, Sega.
So I would like to say to all the audience and everyone who is on the journey is start it. Don't just sit and do nothing. Doing nothing is the biggest mistake that you do. So start your journey. You might fail, you might have challenges, but you learn from those challenges, and you will definitely succeed in your migration.
Brilliant. Noting conscious of time, we do have a quick poll question there. If anyone would like to just pop it in the chat, whereabouts you are in that cloud migration journey. If you haven't started, you're in the initial phase, or you've successfully migrated, or what are your challenges, feel free to drop those in the conversation. But if there are no other questions at the moment from the audience, we might wrap up there, conscious of time. So thank you everyone for attending our session today. We really hope you found it insightful, and reach out to us at info@keydata.com.au with any follow-up questions you may have, and we'll be delighted to talk further. And thank you, and have a great day, and thank you again, panel.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.